101.5. The show is also coming to you live on Fabric 101.1, Super TV, Fabric TV, Spawn TV, and we live via our YouTube channel at Spawn Talk. So welcome. It's 25 minutes on the flip side of 9 o'clock, and we already have with us in our studio Dr. Dougbeh Chris Nyan, and we would like to apologize to you. We are facing some technical problem here in our studio, so you want to see Dr. Yan on the screen. We are in the back, and we'll be asking all of the necessary questions this morning. So welcome to it. As we go on with the conversation, you want to take notes, we open the lines later on so that you call and make your contribution. Let me welcome Dr. Yan again to the Today Show. Doctor, welcome.
Thank you for the invitation.
All right, it's always a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you very much again, and for having me in your studio.
All right. So now, how has it been?
Well, it's been going well.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let's begin with the discussion because we don't have much of a time. I mean, let's start off with this issue of Ebola. You know, many Liberians still remember the horrors of the 2014 Ebola outbreak. Now, with the new outbreaks reported in parts of Africa, in the DR Congo, and in Uganda, is there a need for Liberia to be worried?
Certainly, given our experience with Ebola during the outbreak of 2014, which devastated a lot of lives, and our countries, Guinea, Liberia, and Sierra Leone, there is a need for us to be concerned because these diseases have no passports. They travel just as we, go across borders, and so there are possibilities that we could, any country for that matter, could get an infection transmitted because of intercontinental travels. So we have to be concerned. The good thing is that over the years we've done our best as a country and as a region, erecting public health institutes. When I testified before Congress and proposed the establishment of public health institutes in the region on the continent and the establishment of the Africa CDC. That was a proposal before the U.S. Congress, which was taken. And so since then, we've been building our public health infrastructure, training responders, biomedical researchers in other countries, not as much as I see here in Liberia, the MPhil, which I started doing at the time. And so, yeah, we should be concerned and we should be prepared.
Okay. So is Liberia truly safe at the moment?
Again, with a cross-border movement of people, no country can say it is safe. You will note that there has already been transmission in a particular country in Europe. I just can't remember, I got that notification this morning.
Okay.
So we that are right here on the African continent that have flight connections, whether direct or indirect, with that region where the DRC Congo is and Uganda is and Sudan is, we should be really concerned. And so there is a possibility, but it could be remote if we are very well prepared, activate our prepared and response mechanisms in order to arrest any such situation or case when we encounter it.
Doctor, this issue of denial and fake rumors, there are rumors circulating Liberia already got suspected Ebola case or cases. I mean, how can we deal with the issue of fake rumor and denial?
That is a very important aspect of outbreak response. And during these times, you will have certain tendencies in the society where people spread information that is inaccurate, people spread misinformation, people spread rumors. If that is not coming from the entities themselves, it makes it all the more easier to contend with. There has to be important and robust public health awareness campaign going on. Just as I did under my leadership during this MPOX, where we encounter certain rumors, we nipped that in the bud immediately. We called the press, we spoke with the press, every agency. We taught the press setting nomenclatures and other things. And we started moving on well. From that very first point till this point, we've not heard any rumors about the MPOX, measles and Lassa outbreak response, which we're engaged in. It is quite unfortunate that Ebola, which is not even in the country, we are getting misinformation about that. And so I think the public health entity needs to double off its efforts in order to carry out very strong awareness in order to educate the public to avoid all of these contradictions. Now, the institutes themselves will have to be very careful as to how they transmit messages, meaning the healthcare institutions, the public health institutions, and the Ministry of Health, because we have seen that this recent situation emanated from the John F. Kennedy Medical Center, where there was an in-service training going on and messages transmitted, and we have a situation where it transformed into a rumor that had created panic, not just in Liberia, but in the region, because I remember seeing some bloggers in Sierra Leone already saying that, you know, there's an outbreak in Liberia. Yeah, which is not correct. It's inaccurate. There's no outbreak in Liberia so far as I know to this date. And so these entities themselves have to be very transparent, have to be careful as to how they transmit messages, and also the awareness should not only go to the public, it should also be for employees of entities, because the manner in which we transmit message may be misconstrued. And so it's very important that we take that into consideration.
Do you think the health authorities were swift in, you know, borrowing from your own words, in nipping, you know, this recent rumor in its bud? Do you think they were swift? They were quick?
That's a very critical question, and the timeline can be looked at. I mean, this particular message.
I mean, it's circulated on social media
for hours.
Yeah.
And I got these messages also, as you always know, that people send me these messages and want me to respond, want me to verify. There are a couple of colleagues in the US, medical doctors and public health practitioners, who sent me these messages as well. And so when I woke up, I was struck. I looked around to see if the Public Health Institute had responded, and if the Ministry of Health had responded, the JFK had responded, and there was absolutely nothing. And so we have to be careful with the timeline, the time we allow for rumors to, you know, or inaccurate information to circulate. And like I said, under my leadership, we had that first incident during the MPOX. We immediately, once we caught that, within 1 to 2 hours, we were able to clear that away and inform the public appropriately on a very strong risk communication emergency approach. So, public health entity, the NFIL, the Ministry of Health, and other medical entities around should be very robust in their response to these kind of messages. If not, it sits in and then it creates apprehension in the society. and it creates all of the misgivings and all of the conspiracy theories. People then start to come up with conspiracy theories, and that is what has gained ground now. There are a lot of conspiracies going around, and it's left with the public health entity of the Ministry of Health to deal with that.
Is there a way that these misinformation can still be dealt with? Is there any approach that the health authority can care about now to see how we can deal with these misinformation circulating?
Yeah, I think if they have the trained personnel, if they deploy the trained personnel, those who are really trained in risk communication, there's a difference between public health risk communication and the regular healthcare awareness messaging. They're two different things, and people seem not to understand that. So, if politics can be taken out of the response efforts by the National Public Health Institute, the National Public Health Institute is able to deploy its trained manpower that are specific for this kind of obligation in terms of risk communication, clearance. It becomes difficult when you have the rumors emanating or the misinformation emanating from the entity itself. In 2024 September, the same JFK came out with a release sometime that there was an outbreak of viral hemorrhagic fever, where all these viruses where you have Ebola, Marburg, Lassa, etc. in Sierra Leone, and that was inaccurate. It advised his employees and get them to get prepared and all of that. The NFIL under my leadership had to come in to clarify that there was no outbreak. It was a suspected case which was being handled in Sierra Leone, and that case in fact was indeterminate, meaning they didn't even know whether it was it or it was not. So you cannot use terminologies that create panic. So that's one thing. In 2025 September, the Ministry of Health itself came out with this announcement of a viral hemorrhagic fever suspicion from a dead body that was taken off the ship from international waters. Activated all response mechanisms, that which the NFIL should have been doing. Under my leadership, we arrested it, made sure that we tested specimen from that dead body, and it came out to be negative. Yet there was an insistence by the Ministry of Health and the WHO country representative to, continue on testing and doing a lot of things which would have been tantamount to maybe probably coming up with results that were not accurate and would have been a false declaration of Ebola. And we resisted that with all of the technical capacities that we have in diagnostics. So that was the second one. Now this is the third, emanating again from the health sector. So it becomes very difficult when these misinformation and attitudes are coming from the professional, from within the professional setting. It is different when you are looking at just ordinary people spreading rumors. So that's where the burden is more on the professional side than the layman's side. So they have to do their work. Allow the Public Health Institute to do its work. We've been trained for that over the years. This is prevention.
Okay.
And it's different from curative medicine.
All right. How prepared is Liberia, today to kind of fight Ebola just in case there's an outbreak compared to 2014?
In 2014, we had, I can say, absolutely no mechanism in terms of public health response. there was no public health institute, but we had a biomedical research institute, which was the LIBR, that could do diagnostics, research work, and those kind of things. But we didn't have a public health institute. And that engendered the major element of my testimony to the US Congress in September 2014 to call for the establishment of public health institutes. Because from our experience out there, we know that there are biomedical research institutes, there are regulatory institutes, and there are public health institutes, like you have the U.S. Centers for Disease Control. So the U.S. embraced that, and we said, just as you have this U.S. CDC, we also want an African CDC. And the U.S. also embraced that and put a lot of money into it. Thanks to the U.S. CDC, the United States Congress, that today we have these public health entities built around. Now, once they were built, there's a need to train public health responders, that which has been going on over the years since 2014, well, let's leave out 2014, since 2016, 2017, when the NFIL was established. So we have trained a lot of good epidemiologists, thanks to AFINET, which is one of the institutions that train epidemiologists on the African continent. So in that group, we have very well-trained public health responders that I can consider experts to this day, that you can mash up with any quote-unquote expert from the Western world or expert from around the continent. At the NFIL also, under my leadership, did increase the laboratory capacity broadly, because you have to have good and accurate diagnostics to respond well. Okay. If you don't know what you're responding to, you'll be swimming in an ocean of diseases. So train them. So we have these capabilities. Again, if these capabilities are allowed to work without political interference, without policy interference by the Ministry of Health, you will have a situation where we'll continue to beat back these diseases. We did that with Mpox, we did that with Lassa. We have beaten Lassa down considerably. What I got with slashed it, and at least to this date, we may not have any Lassa case in the country. There may be some suspected cases, but an active case we may not have at this point. COVID, back in the days, we dealt with, and we continue to monitor COVID. We continue to monitor Ebola and Marburg on a regular basis. So these are our prepared capabilities. But only and only if these capabilities are allowed to function will we be able to beat back any disease. If there are interferences, we will be headed for a disaster.
But there's this insinuation in the different communities that the health sector, the government of Liberia, usually bring out these diseases in order to earn money. Like in case Ebola comes to Liberia, it is government and health officials who will benefit from the funding that come from the international partners. What do you say to that?
Again, going back to the Ebola outbreak, there were a lot of money mobilized. In fact, the US government mobilized up to about $6 billion for Ebola response. And we had made representations to the US government that before Ebola comes to an end, we want public health infrastructures built. To this date, it is not clear how much of that money went into building of this infrastructure. When this happened,
how much of that money was even given to Liberia? That was $6 billion.
$6 billion for the entire response.
For the entire response. Not only for Liberia, but for the region.
But for the region.
Okay.
So that's the question. And I don't have figures. I'm not going to give you figures that I don't have, right? But I'm giving you the scope of the situation. As you well know, the Public Health Institute in Liberia is yet to have a space to work in, besides the makeshift office building that was constructed right on the Covington Back Road here. So it brings to mind what happened to all of this funding. There are a lot of, during the course of time, COVID, when we had a COVID outbreak pandemic, yes, there were a lot of resources that poured in. And where are those, what happened? What landmark have we been able to live? Take, for instance, during that period, there were funding made available by entities, whether World Bank or USAID, for example, to purchase computers for the responders. These computers were purchased, and when these computers came in, these were laptop computers, about 130 plus. To this date, those laptops cannot be found. That was during the COVID era.
During the COVID?
During the COVID, when Dr. Fala left. Okay. That was outside of Dr. Fala. And I just want to give you the timeline. After Dr. Fala was booted out unceremoniously, the rest of the time, those funding started coming in, those materials started coming in. Nobody can account for those. Motorcycles that are supposed to be used for the responders to go around the counties, that are in the counties to go around. And these are the surveillance officers, we call them. County surveillance officers and district surveillance officers. Liberia also has zonal responders, zonal surveillance officers.
Okay.
Those you can find. So when I got there, one of the first things I did was at the Enfield was to put in for laptop computers. Those computers came, and each of those responders got their computers.
But did you push for accountability, when you took over?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, I also did, with my leadership team, put in for motorcycles, because these responders, surveillance officers, need to move around. And those motorcycles should be coming anytime soon. When they come, I am not there. I propose very humbly that those motorcycles be given to the responders. They should not be given to relatives and friends or stolen and sold. I appeal to whatever the authoritative structure is at the National Public Health Institute now. When those motorcycles come in, assign them to those 100 plus responders that we have, those surveillance officers in the counties and in the districts.
So the previous ones that went missing, the previous computers or equipment that went missing, were they accounted for under your leadership?
When I got there, the immediate thing we were confronted with was the vehicle theft.
Okay.
If you followed, followed that.
Yeah.
And that you had high authorities within the Enfield structure, public health structure, conniving to steal government and government vehicles and sell them. We arrested that situation. We went through a due process investigation. The Deputy Director General for Administration was forwarded to the Justice Ministry and the President for actions, including termination. The Deputy Director for Logistics was terminated by my leadership. We had a right to do that. The Deputy Director for Logistics was given a suspension, time indefinite, without pay.
Okay.
Three other personnel, drivers, were suspended for 3 months without pay. And I forwarded those reports to the Justice Ministry. And when I say our leadership team, which I represent, forwarded those to the Justice Ministry and to the President and to the board, the Enfield board. The investigation we did On that committee was the Internal Audit Agency, the Liberian National Police, and then NFIL staff. And so reports came out, and we forwarded those reports. Those that were held culprit are now to be prosecuted according to the law. It is unfortunate that there are tendencies and requests being made to us at the time and up to the time I left to drop the case from the court. And under my leadership, we said no, we will not drop the case because this is a theft issue.
And
this is corruption.
Who were making those requests?
The request emanated from cycles in the board.
Okay.
Yeah, and we said no. There were specific discussions held with me by the chairman of the board, and I said no, we can't. We discussed with our SMT, the senior management team, and I fell back on them and asked them what your opinions were, and we all came to the conclusion that no, the case has been forwarded already to the Justice Ministry. These people have been investigated by the police. The police validated our evidence, and the evidence is available. We can share, that.
Okay. Now,
yeah.
Let's look at the preparations that the National Public Health Institute or the health authorities are currently making for a potential Ebola outbreak. There's an advisory out right now from the National Public Health Institute where those coming from the DR Congo, Uganda, those Ebola affected areas currently will be screened upon arrival and all of that. But internally, do you think the health authorities are doing enough to contain a potential Ebola outbreak? Because currently, as we speak, we still see people compacted in vehicles, that like during the Ebola era in 2014. One of the most common word used was social distancing. We don't see social distancing. We don't see the fossil buckets at various government institutions, at businesses, people washing their hands. We don't actually see all of those. Do you think they're doing enough internally to enforce these precautionary measures?
It was a practice when I was there. Our put health officers, thanks to their diligence, that are assigned to all of the entry points, major entry points at the Lagos International Airport, Hanta, Waterside, at the Manikoma entry point with Sierra Leone as well, and then the Suleiman entry point with Guinea, and a few others, Town, and then at the entry point River G and Cape Palmas. Thanks to these port health officers for their diligence, when I was under my leadership, we made them to be very robust. We were having regular visits in order to strengthen our borders. And so particularly for the RIA, our port health officers have been so superb. And I passed through them many times. Every time we passed through there, they were on their jobs. And mind you, these are people who were volunteering. They were not being paid. And that's something that I was working on, to have them on the payroll, all of the port health officers. For years, they've not been paid, yet they've been so dedicated to their work. And so thanks to all of you that have been putting in your patriotic services. And so it's a regular practice to check all incoming passengers, checking them. So for the outbreak, specific emphasis is then laid on countries that are involved. So those that are coming from those countries, the DRC, Uganda, Sudan, Kenya is in a region also. and there's transit points in Kenya, there are transit points in Ethiopia. So you check those kind of passengers that are coming, whether directly or through transit. Yes, the advisory has been put out, but things are good on paper, as good as they would be in practice. And once we can effectively empower our public health officers, like I was doing, that diligence from them and their professional abilities will be enhanced in preventing an incoming or detecting a case that may come into our country. And now, isolation centers should be, activated and prepared by now.
Okay. But they are not.
Even during the mpox, as you probably follow, we have the hand washing stations all around. I don't know if they are still there. That's a question, because these things have to be enforced regularly. The business entities, government entities, private homes, this hand wash, sanitizing of your hand, keeping social distances. Don't go into a crowd if it's not necessary. All of these things, from the Ebola time to COVID, these general regulations, right? They apply to almost everything. So a constant enforcement of these regulations will save the day. And so again, I would say issuing statements, issuing advisories is as good as it can be, unless it is put into active practice.
Dr. there is this rumor that Ebola, diseases like Ebola, are man-made. You're not expecting the few. Can you just spare all this rumor that Ebola is a man-made disease that's meant to put money in the pockets of few?
We have to be careful, and again, because of some of the misgivings, right? Some of the corruption that have gone through our public health and medical systems, not just only in Liberia, but you can see that in other countries. The population tend to come up with theories of their own. These tiny organisms that we can see by our naked eyes, right?
Yeah.
We have to use microscope and these things to see. These things predated us as humans. When I say predate, mean these things existed far before humans arose on the earth. So they have been around for millions of years. Now, they have their natural habitat where they live. Some of them naturally, like Ebola, you can find it in the bats, you can find it in other animals. Okay, that's the natural habitat. They don't cause any disease in the bats, they don't cause diseases in those other animals. But when they escape from there, and through whatever means, through the contact, which is the most common means through which is transfer, right? And they come into us humans, they are transmitted to us humans. We are a different habitat. So they will have to adjust themselves in order to survive. Their idea, and let me put it this way, it's not to harm you. The idea is to survive, right? But in that process of their surviving, they have to change a lot of things, and that's how we become harmed. Then we to start fighting them because these are foreign agents coming to us. So our own response, our immune response, what we call immune response, and their invasive action combine to create these diseases, what we call a pathogenic process. Now, it only goes to say that these diseases or these pathogens in general, they live in natural habitat. In the laboratory, in biomedical research, we are able to look at them and determine which gene is the one that is responsible for making them to cause the disease, right? Which gene is the one that is responsible for making them to resist certain medications that we give them, right? Which we call antiviral or antimicrobial resistance. So we are able to do that. we cannot make viruses. Let me say it that way. As biomedical researchers, as scientists, those things are natural, but we are able to look at them just as we look at humans, right? And we are able to determine the human genes, and we are able to determine whether this child belongs to this person, right? Paternity test. Yeah. We do the same thing to see whether this virus belongs to this family, whether this bacteria belongs to this order, whether this other zoonotic disease or pathogen belongs to whichever category of classification. So it's a conspiracy theory, and we have to explain to our people through the same risk communication in public health in order to debunk these theories. Now, this can be debunked effectively if public health responders and medical researchers alike are transparent, accountable, and swift in providing accurate information to the public. It has to be an education, because even in the medical arena itself, there are doctors, there are medical people who didn't believe that COVID existed. They deny it, right? And that's how you have a lot of healthcare workers being infected back in the days as well. There was this denial among some healthcare workers that COVID ever existed. So it is not just in the layman population; it's also in the professional realm. And so it is through very good educational, pedagogic, scientific communication in the form of risk communication by public health practitioners, accurate information and timely delivery of such information that will be able to debunk these things.
Okay, and talking about the family of Ebola virus, currently we have another strain of the virus called the Bundibugyo Ebola virus. It's a kind of rare type of Ebola virus. I mean, how deadly it is compared to the previous strain that that existed in Liberia in 2014.
Well, Ebola virus in general is a deadly virus. When you class them, as we class the pathogens, it's a class 4. Class 4 is the highest.
Class 4.
Yeah. So you can imagine how deadly it is. That is why you see when we are responding, we have to wear all these weird, heavy protective gears with respirator on our backs, as opposed to if you are dealing with something like E. coli, that you can even touch with your hands with no mask and anything. So it's very deadly. There are 6 types.
Okay.
Right. The Zaire, the Bundibugyo, which is causing the havoc now in Central African Republic and Uganda. When I say the Central African Republics, meaning like Sudan and DR Congo and Uganda. Then we have the Western strain, and then we have the Taif forest strain or type. There is another type, which is the 6th type that is still being characterized. So I'm not going to go into that. They're all deadly. Okay. There have been outbreaks of those intermittently since 1976, when the Ebola virus was first detected. And Zaire has been the most common and most prevalent ones that have caused the diseases all around. So in DR Congo, in Sudan, here in West Africa, 2014 outbreak, and then the little spikes of outbreak that we had in between. Bundibugyo and the rest of them have been pretty much quiet, right? But they have caused some outbreaks at some point as well. So not much effort, not much attention has been given to them, because we've been giving our attention to the most virulent, virulent and prevalent one. Yeah. Right. So that's why people never heard about it much. But now that it has caused this big outbreak in the DR Congo, and you know how huge that country is, the region where this outbreak is now taking place, which is the epicenter, is very huge. I mean, it's a very huge region. So even accessibility is an issue. And so, yeah, it is as deadly as the others. Like, all right, so let's move over to your legal issue with the government, except maybe when we ask other questions pertaining to basic law.
I mean, he are expecting the fee. I mean, in the closing, I would just want him to throw light on the recent call by the African Disease Control to carry on more research so that they themselves can begin to develop vaccine or medication for some of these diseases are causing havoc on the continent.
Correct. And these are meetings that we held consistently because research and development, we think, must be grounded in our response efforts in Africa. We can't always wait for the outside world to do these things for us and then just feed us with them. So we have astute technical capabilities, scientists alike, that are capable of carrying out this research. And so the Africa CDC has been focused on research and development and manufacturing as well. And as you've seen, most of my calls have always called for us doing our own research, for us manufacturing our own diagnostic kits, our own test kits, our own vaccines, for example. So the Africa CDC is really leading this effort, is really leading this push for Africa to take hold of its own research priorities. But now it requires heavy investment from our national governments. Yeah, research and development is very expensive. It doesn't come easy. So it requires immense budgetary support from our governments. You can't depend on handouts to do research. You will note that during the COVID, for example, how did we come out with the COVID vaccine so fast? Because the United States gave several companies billions of dollars to develop a COVID vaccine. And Pfizer, Moderna, they came up quick with the mRNA technology, came up with a vaccine that saved the world. So that's the thing. The Africa CDC is really pushing this for Africa to do its own research and development and manufacture on the continent. And that includes diagnostic tests and vaccines as well as other pharmaceuticals. Under my leadership at the Enfield, we did develop this platform to begin to develop our own diagnostic tests, right? Using the technology that I have already and that I also at the time given to the government in 2016 when I served as national orator, that they could use my invention, part of my invention, to produce diagnostic tests on the continent. And so thanks to the director of the Africa CDC, Dr. John Kassir, the rest of the leadership, and our own Dr. Fala, who is at the forefront. He's the director for research and development at the Africa CDC. And he's been really, really working hard to mobilize resources to bring together African scientific minds. Most of those conferences that I went to myself, and we came up with documents on that. And that is what we need. That is why when, under my leadership at the Enfield, we have only 5 diagnostic technicians at the laboratory, which was a disaster. And when I came in, I recruited about 20 to 25 of our young, scientific minds that I also helped to mentor over the years, and brought them in, trained them, brought in some equipment, new equipment, and then brought in the genomic sequencing technology. And you can see how science started to flourish. I'm so proud of 2 of our young scientists that I was training that came up with their publications, for example, from work that they did in collaboration with the University of Liberia. And that's Randall Yene and Bankpala Benetta Pampala. I hope they are twins, so I mix them up sometimes. Yeah,
okay.
but you know who I'm talking to, please.
Okay, Dr. Nyan, let's now transition to your legal matter with the government of Liberia. I mean, the Supreme Court described your relief from the National Public Health Institute as illegal, as unconstitutional, and as a violation of due process. Since then, how has it been? What went through your mind when you heard this ruling?
All through my life and advocacy as an activist for democracy and social justice, throughout my life, I mean, I can say from baby up to this point, I've always, strived to adhere to the rule of law, promoting democratic tenets and respect for human rights. Those things which I advocated for all through these years that landed me and other colleagues in prison, was released from prison by the military government, and I continued studying. Came back over the years now to contribute, right? After contributing to other countries, there was this call that you need to come back now. You need to come back and help us. You've done this thing all around the other countries. Now it's time for you to come to Liberia and settle in. But before then, I had come in and rendered voluntary services, as you have documented. So I decided, yes, it's time. Let me get back, home. And so I came home and went through the vetting process and was selected through the vetting process and legally installed and appointed as the Director General of the National Public Health Institute. And immediately I took off. And the results, the progress we made is well documented by the NFIL's own report, by the GAC report, and interestingly, by the Executive Mansion's own report awarding us, NFIL, under my leadership at the time, this Excellent Performance Award. It came as a shock to see that, I got this termination letter from the president. On the one hand. On the other hand, it was anticipated because there was this situation where the board consistently undermined the work of the NFIL board. They spent the entire time that I was, from the point I was appointed up to the point, they spent the entire time trying to remove me.
Trying to remove it?
For what reason? And the board comprises of?
The board comprises of people who are medical doctors and statutory members like the Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Health, University of Liberia, and two other government entities. Then the non-statutory members include the chairman, who is Dr. Stephen Kennedy, the Walter Gwenigali Jr., Dr. Moses Dopo, Dr. Angela Benson, and all these doctors. Okay. And they go to these meetings and come up with all these weird situations.
Why do you think the board are undermining your leadership or your efforts?
Like to remove you?
Well, quite frankly, because I was stern with what I was doing.
You were stern,
straightforward. Meaning, like I said, the first thing I was confronted with was this kind of theft.
Okay.
I had to nip it in the bud. The board chair's quote-unquote son was part of this theft.
Okay.
So his son was part of this car theft, and that's somebody he's taking care of all these years. The Deputy Director General for Administration was his close buddy, who all came from WLT, AMWLT together.
Okay.
They once participated in WLT leadership together.
Okay.
So it seems that there is this protective mechanisms among these people when you are being strict forward. And I think they're then used to bending the corners. And so you don't fit within that cycle. Because if you look at all the reports, right, nothing you can see that I did wrong.
Okay.
It's documented that
Like
I did nothing wrong.
In their resolution, they accused
Right.
they accused you of several things. They said poor coordination with the Ministry of Health, lack of collaboration with the government and partner institutions, failure to involve the board in key decisions, and disregard for the statutory authority of the board. They went on to say you traveled persistently without the board's knowledge. You submitted communications to the president and the national legislature without the board approval, and you conducted affairs through the media without proper authorization. So those were some of the things that
those were in the resolutions that you were taking about consulting the
and
board.
mind you, I think one of the things that I have seen in the Liberian governance setting is that most of these boards don't know their responsibilities.
Most of the boards.
Most of these boards do not know their responsibilities.
What is their responsibility?
They are there to evaluate the entities quarterly. They are not there to run the entities along with the administrators that are put in those entities to run those entities on a day-to-day basis.
Okay.
So when you read all of those things, it sounds like a board that wants to run an entity, that want to dictate to technical, knowledgeable people, right? And some of the things placed in there are very questionable because on the board you have Dr. Bernice Dan as well, I forgot the name of them, are people who've been in ministerial leadership, directorial leadership, etc. And these are the same people that will come back to want to micromanage an entity that is scientific, autonomous, and should be independent in its scientific thinking and movement. It's very, very, very questionable. But let's look at some of those points. By the way, you read my response to all of those points, and you saw that there was no validity, there was nothing accurate in what they were saying. It was all lies. Those points were tested through the legal system, and the legal system also found no evidence in that. So I don't want to bore your time going through them one by one because
there's no evidence in the number of travels you made with foreigners.
No evidence in me traveling and not informing the board. There were emails, there were text messages, there were memos indicating that the board, the chairman, Dr. Stephen Kennedy, was informed when I was traveling, and it was through courtesy. There's nothing in the statutory regulations that says when you are traveling, you need to tell the board and they must permit you to travel. When do you go for a scientific meeting? Now, let's look at one point that you communicate with the president without the approval of the board. Doesn't make any sense that the board should give approval to a director general who reports directly to the president. Okay. The director general of the NFO reports directly to the president. So how can the board give approval before such a
all of those also depends on the act creating the,
and that's why I'm saying
institution.
The act is there.
Okay.
All of what they said was in violation of the act. Let's just put it that way.
Okay.
All of this what were listed there were in violation of the act.
Okay.
Yeah. Their entire 11-point resolution was pure lies. But we put it that way because my response, going through it, debunk every point.
Right.
The board says there was no resolution sent, there was no quarterly report sent to the board. And you look in my response and you look at everything, you see an email sending the quarterly report attached to it to the board. So for people who call themselves doctors to sit and put together 11 lies, it's very troubling. This is some of the places where some of the misinformation come from, some of the what we call where people don't respect professionals, because you don't lie in broad day like that. And the court, not just a lower court, the Supreme Court, look at the same evidence, right? Accusation and my response, and said there was no evidence in what they were saying.
Okay. And the president, the Ministry of State, I think, following the board recommendation to the president, the president requested your response, and I want to believe the minister.
I requested.
Oh, you
I
requested.
requested, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. The minister of state designate at the time, Steve Queer,
Okay.
called me and said there's a resolution from the board, and there are 11 points, and he read those points to me like an indictment in court. And so the board is calling for your removal, and that I'm going to forward this to the president. The president was at the UNGA at the time.
Okay.
And then the president will advise us on what to do. And so my question to him was, he said, so that's all? And I said, that's all? He said, yeah. I said, but
Never requested for your response.
no. No. And I said, that's all? He said, yes. That was in the presence of Bushuben Keita, who is the legal counsel.
Yeah.
And another lady called Massa, who is some HR person at the Ministry of State.
Okay.
And all of them said the same thing to me. And I asked, is that all? He said, yes. So he said, that's all? Yeah, you can leave if you want. And I said, no. First and foremost, I don't know about any such meeting. If the board is meeting, the secretary to the board is the director general of the entity. So that was the first violation. So that means this meeting was held, or these meetings were held in secret.
Okay.
That creates conspiracy. You talk about a resolution. I don't have a copy of the resolution. He said, oh, you don't have it? You were not served? I said, no. I said, may I have a copy of the resolution so that I can respond? Can you please inform the president that I do want to respond to this? So I requested to respond. I was not even given a chance to respond to that. And he said, okay, I will get back to you. And after a day or two, I got this response. He called me in again. I went back, and the same three, person, Councilor Bushuben Keita, and this lady called Massa. And they asked me, they said, well, you requested the president that you kindly needed to respond. The president agreed that you respond. Your response should be sent within 48 hours. I said, So I said, okay. So attached is the resolution that you requested to see. And that was the first time I was seeing a resolution. And so I went to work and responded to them. My response debunked every count that the board had in their erroneous and lying resolution.
Did the president review? Did you get to know actually that the president reviewed your response and still went on with your relief?
I requested for a review at the end of my response. Did you read my response?
Yeah.
I wish you had the opportunity of reading some of my responses so that the audience too will know how I responded. And I requested a review and never got that review. The only thing I saw and heard was that I was terminated. Yeah. On air. And I was asked to come for the letter.
I listened to you say people try to micromanage entity you heard.
Yeah.
Could you just demonstrate some of the allegations that you were unilaterally making decisions?
That was debunked in my response. We have a senior management team, all right, that governs the entity on a daily basis. And that senior management team made decisions. So decisions were not unilateral. So, and that's the weirdest thing about, this group of people, doctors, that carve these conspiracies and lies and send them over to the president. Now that the court have determined that these were all lies with no evidence, why are these people still around? I think we need to institute integrity and ethics in our work here in this country.
Okay.
In other countries, these people will not be around. One of the interesting things is that the board also sent an affidavit signed by the chairman of the board, Dr. Stephen Kennedy. The Minister of Health, Dr. Louis Poto, sent also an affidavit. And the court found all of these to be lies. No evidence were in those affidavits. So it's troubling, really, to be very
The,
frank with you.
the Ministry of Justice.
From where I was trained and where I worked all these years in the West, Europe, and United States and around, it's strange. I've never seen such a thing where you keep unethical people around. I don't know.
The Ministry of Justice feels that the case has not yet been concluded. According to them, I mean, they took an appeal to the full bench of the Supreme Court to come down with a final ruling, because the ruling from the Associate Justice in Chamber, I mean, can be overrated, by majority members of the Supreme Court.
They have the right to do so through the legal process, but it sometimes becomes very concerning, and that people look at the truth and still try to circumvent the truth. Okay. Yeah, I mean, as simple as it is. I will ask the audience that are listening and anybody out there to read my response and read. You can go back on Spoon FM and you will see those responses. I think OKFM also published those things, and you will read those things, even without being a legal-minded person. Just from an administrative standpoint, you will read those. You will see the evidence countering every count of this both resolution. So, can the Justice Ministry say that Dr. Nyan did not submit the quarterly report? Can the Justice Ministry now go to the full bench and say Dr. Nyan did not support the annual report? Can the Justice Ministry go to the full bench and say Dr. Nyan traveled without knowledge of the board when all the evidences are there? So excuse me. So I don't know, and that's what I'm saying. It is their right to do that, but if they are delaying the process of justice, that in itself is injustice.
What has this done to your national and international reputation? Has it affected?
Well, I think their aim was to tarnish my reputation. Okay, as you will see, it was a conspiracy, had no basis in any evidence, and so I had to clear my side.
Did they achieve in the conspiracy to maybe tarnish your?
Well, they achieved in removing me. And then the international community and other people will try to figure out, but why was he removed? That question, why, alone creates a cloud, and many other things.
After the ruling, you were asked to choose reinstatement or get your due benefit. What do you think?
No, I was not asked to choose. The ruling was ordered. The government was ordered and mandated to either reinstate or pay the rest of my time because they broke a contract.
So, and what do you stand with that?
It's not my place to decide.
I mean, if
the ruling had come to me, my lawyers and I would determine the best course forward. But the ruling didn't mandate me; it mandated the government.
But if the government should reinstate you, should make a decision to reinstate you, are you still willing to go back there at the infield?
Let's see what the government comes up with. And I don't want to jump the gun. I don't want to presuppose anything. I came to this country to work, right? To serve my people. Okay. And I still serve the continent. I serve the world. Yeah. So if they want me to, if they make a choice, then there will be discussions on those choices they make. So I can't presuppose anything at the moment.
If you have to go back to Amphib, you still need those same group of people who you think shouldn't be around the sector any longer. I mean, are you still willing to work in that environment?
Well, again, it depends on what decision the government makes. The fact that the government, as you said, they want to take a full, appeal to the full bench, that suggests that they are still contentious. And so we have to wait to see what happens.
They are contentious, okay. But relaxed.
I'm relaxed. I'm doing what I do. I'm doing what I was trained to do.
Thank you.
Without a government job.
Thank you very much, Dr. Yao. We have gone far beyond time. It's been a pleasure having you here in our studio. Always, availing yourself whenever we call. Thank you very much. Anything finally you want to say that maybe we did not ask in parting?
I'd just like to admonish the world and our people to be very practical and cautious with the various diseases, that are in outbreak mode at the moment. We are still in mpox outbreak. It's not finished yet. We are Lassa, we are measles. We are still monitoring COVID regularly, Marburg, and the very Ebola we are talking about. So do those things that we said and we asked you to do. Wash your hands constantly. Sanitize them. Those little pocket-sized sanitizers we carry around?
Yeah.
Keep using them. If you're not supposed to be in a huge crowd, avoid it.
Reduce the number of people in
Right.
the taxi and the buses.
They can do that, and that will be left with discussion between the transport ministry and the regulating agencies. And it's just these public health preventive measures that I will ask our people to continue to practice. That's why we were trained for. That's why I was the chief responder as the Director General of the National Public Health Institute, and we have to continue to enforce this. I still do what I do with or without being in a government position.
And quickly before you leave, I watched your interview on the Al Jazeera lately. I mean, do you still consider yourself as the Director General of the National Public Health Institute?
Read the court rulings, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, read the court rulings.
All right. So you're saying
Everything is legal.
Yeah, because
Everything
you
that
are
is
here now and
legal.
we are asking to know if
Right.
you still consider yourself. I mean, the audience following you who also want to hear from you because they all may not be.
With the court also affirm a prohibition. And you know what a prohibition is, right? That the dismissal is automatically reversed.
Okay.
And whoever that the government put in there
So
should not be there.
So
So their being
legally,
there is illegal.
so legally,
So
you are
certainly.
the Director
So
General.
it's all
But in
legal.
practice, you are not.
Well, whichever way we want to put it, what remains is that I am Dougbeh Chris Nyan, who
Okay.
studied medicine in Germany, who was trained as a scientist in the US, and have been practicing my profession all over the country on a voluntary basis and on official basis when I work with the US federal government at the NIH, the FDA, and the Naval Medical Research Center, as well as the University of Pennsylvania School of Medicine. And I've come back repeatedly over the years since 2005 to perform voluntary services, train responders, train diagnostic technicians, serve in the various academic institutions, teaching medical microbiology, volunteer at a medical school for a whole semester teaching medical microbiology. Hi to all my students that have graduated and are serving in the medical arena of this country and in the world. And so that's where we are.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Good having you.
All right, it's been a pleasure having you. So, folks, that's it. He's Dr. Dougbeh Chris Nyan, a public health expert and award-winning Liberian scientist, Director General of the National Public Health Institute.
So you are the first, you are the second person to say that. The Al Jazeera people.
As
said
per
that
the code
you say
ruling.
that. As per the code ruling.
As per the code ruling. So we'll be back here tomorrow, folks, with another fascinating edition of the show. My name is Yekezi Zobel. I've been here alongside Sylvester Wood. Bye-bye.